Hello. I'm gonna make you guys talk out loud later, so get ready, okay? Let me see if I can get this to work. Aha, here I am. So if you're gonna hashtag anything, make sure to use all these down here. Take note, okay? And I would like to thank all of you for being here so early this morning. And thanks to Blue Cross Blue Shield in New York, and of course to the Creative Mornings team for the opportunity to share my story today. My moment of serendipity happened in a small village in Ukraine called Potutere, where that red dot is up there. And I didn't know it at the time, but I've been waiting a long time for this moment to happen in my life. As an artist, as a mom, as a business owner, as a portrait photographer, things always feel in flux in my life. And for the fact that this amazing moment happened for me, and things kind of all came together, was really something important. And the story of how my serendipitous moment happened goes back many generations, and I'm going to share that with you today. It all started with wanting to go see the house where my mom was born. My mom's here today, so say hi to her. And no one in my family had been back to see this house, and it was in that tiny village in western Ukraine. And all I knew about this house is I had this painting that my grandmother had painted. And we're going to call my grandmother Baba, because that's what we all call her. And I knew that this house, I knew the town that it was in, and I also knew that it was down the street from this church that one of our relatives had found on Google Maps, because my great-grandfather was the priest at this church. And so I had those facts, okay? That's what I had to go with. Let's talk about Baba. So Baba is now 101 and unfortunately suffering dementia in nearby Lancaster, New York. But before I went on this trek to find this house, she knew and she remembered lots of amazing facts about her time growing up in Ukraine, and told me about these beautiful spaces and the rolling fields and the farmland, and gave me a lot to work with, and it made me want to go see what this place was all about. And so Baba was very influential in my life and my family's life from when I was a kid. And she basically had this life story of something that could be a movie. She was raised in Western Ukraine and had 2 kids in Ukraine, one afterwards when she had gotten to the United States, where we are today, obviously. And when she had my mom, she was living in Lviv, which is a western city in Ukraine close to Poland, and was living in a German-occupied city. Here they are actually at this time. Bob was on the left, my grandfather, my mom, and her older brother. This was taken sometime around there, and my mom always likes to point out those bullet holes in the background of that wall. So she was living in the city, in Lviv, and when she found out that one of her brothers, who was in university, who was part of the underground revolutionary movement, was shot and killed by German officers, they decided to leave the city. It was time to get out of Dodge. So they left and they went to the countryside. And they realized that with all of the Nazi forces coming in, it was time to leave Ukraine. And so they made that choice. They made that choice to pack up all of their belongings in a wagon and leave their homeland. And through a series of events, on their way to try to get to Vienna, Austria, where they had family, they ended up in a series of displaced persons camps all around Germany. And while they were in these displaced persons camps, I just can't help but think about it. My grandmother was 29 years old, and we've all either are almost at that age or past that age, and so we have that point of reference. And her kids were 2 and around 4. And you're taking care of these kids along the way. And while they were in these displaced persons camps, my grandfather, they worked. My grandfather made barbed wire or worked at a dairy. My grandmother cooked. And all this crazy stuff happened. Like, she delivered her neighbor's baby because there was no doctors there. She stole 2 potatoes to help my mom's stomach heal from dysentery, and she almost got killed from it. All this stuff just happened to her, and I'm giving you the really short version. And so through a series of more events, which maybe there was some lying, maybe there was bribery, maybe there was just a lot of hopeful thinking, they ended up in a displaced persons camp, an American one. And there they finally knew that they were safe. And through that camp, they were eventually sponsored to go to Toledo, Ohio, where they eventually ended up in Rochester, New York, close by where my family and I grew up. And we grew up in a very, very proud Ukrainian-American community. And because my grandparents and my parents' generation were essentially refugees, I was raised in a place of pride, of trailblazing, of respect for other people. And one of the reasons that I love photographing individuals is that I just marvel every day in the fact that each individual has so much power. I marvel in the fact that one person can make you feel so much better or so much worse, that one person can really change your life. Let's look at these people. So part of my upbringing was going to camp. And these young ladies are Ukrainian-American campers. And yes, these are shot in the United States. And even better, these people were photographed about 35 miles south of here in North Collins, New York, where the summer camp still exists. And this is part of an ongoing series. So these young ladies were just in their camp uniforms, part of a Ukrainian-American scouting organization called PLOST. Now, a brief history about PLOST is that it started in Ukraine around 1912, don't quote me on that, and there was a lot of boys coming together to band against the Russian Red Army. So inherently, all of the traditions that were ingrained in PLOST were militaristic. So, as a kid, I did not think twice about attending this camp, that I would put on a uniform and I would literally do drill marches in the hot sun because that was part of the badges that we learned. I didn't think twice about driving down this road and turning onto this dirt road that I know my sisters and I, who are also here today, get those butterflies in our stomach when we get to as we were going to camp. But it wasn't like the camp like our American friends went to, went water skiing and other cool stuff on the Finger Lakes. Like we were in the woods, south of here, just kind of in this weird enclave of tradition that had not been changed for generations. I didn't think twice about only being able to speak Ukrainian. And this sign here says, here we only speak the Ukrainian language. And that's a big ass sign. I didn't even think twice about the fact that I was rated daily on my language, on my behavior, on my cleanliness, probably lots of other stuff, and it was for public knowledge. And it was just what PLOST did. But we were just kids. We had so much fun. We ate peanut butter and jelly sandwiches every afternoon for a snack in these beautiful wooden structures that were built generations before us. We swam every day, you know, rain or shine, but sometimes we had to do it. But we had so much fun. And I remember memorizing all the routes on all of the trails so that I wouldn't have to use a flashlight when I walked down those paths at night. We had crushes on the boys. We were kids. We had a blast. Now, the camp wasn't the only thing that I did that was part of my Ukrainian-American upbringing. We did Ukrainian dancing. We went to Saturday school. We learned the Ukrainian language, and we spoke that at home. We learned, we read, we wrote. I went to other crazy camps besides this one. It was just part of our lives, but we were also regular American kids too. And while I was growing up, I realized that I loved what I was given by my previous generations, but I was always very curious about what was actually happening in real Ukraine, not just the Ukraine that I lived in, this preserved diaspora. And it wasn't until I got to graduate school as an artist, as a photographer, that I realized that this story that I was born into was becoming mine to tell. And the best way that I could tell the story was to see both sides of it. So I applied for and got a Fulbright grant to go and live in Ukraine for about a year. And my project while I was there was to meet and research artists and arts organizations all around the country. Because art and storytelling and writing is my language. That's how I understand the world. And so I could possibly understand Ukraine at a deeper level if I could go meet people like me. So I went. And I'll tell you something, it sounds really amazing, right? I got to go to Ukraine for a year. That means I get to leave my beautiful husband and my beautiful life in Brooklyn where I could go out and have so much fun. And my family was petrified. They're like, what the hell's going on in Ukraine? Why are you gonna go there? And I got really scared. And I was like, this is gonna be really hard. I'm gonna be by myself. And then I will just never forget what my in-laws told me before I left. And they said, there's some of the most magnificent and important things you can do in your life are also the most challenging. And I said, all right, so I left. And let me tell you, when I got to Ukraine, things did not feel like home. I was like, what the hell is going on? So I arrived in January, it was gray, it was really cold, and I was alone, and I was like, well, what am I doing? And I think this image just represents the mashup that is a young democracy in a post-Soviet country, where, again, I did not go to this concert. I think I missed it. They don't really change the posters. But this idea of like East meets West, total desire to be part of, you know, the other world that had been kind of just shut down under Soviet rule for so long, with beautiful St. Sophia in the background. And I just, you know, I didn't have the ferocity of these Ukrainian women who just walked down the street with their stern faces and I didn't wear enough animal print. I was way too friendly and bubbly and wore sneakers and was like, oh, I'm so American, you know? And I didn't really realize that stray dogs were going to follow me all over the country, because there's actually a really big stray dog problem in Ukraine. And they were very friendly, but they were like wolves. And everywhere I go, I was alone, and so they just kind of guided me to where I was going. It was really intense. I was not ready for this guy who showed up at the apartment I was staying at the second night I was there, in the apartment I was sharing with other Americans or other expats. And so all of a sudden someone invited this really popular, like kind of like gypsy punk band to come and play in the apartment. And this guy just took off his shirt, and they had some guy arrived with a big jug of wine and a tuba. It was amazing. I was just not ready for this, right? I was like, and it was crazy. And I kind of felt like this kid. Like I was kind of wanted to curl up and go and just observe everything, and just felt really disconnected. So I was in Ukraine, and I was like, okay, all this crazy stuff is happening. I'm observing everything. And I have a project to do, and how do I do this? And so I just started. I went to the local arts organization, the Contemporary Arts Center in Kiev, and just said, hey, I'm here to do this. Can you help me? And so that's the process that started. I just was connected to all of these amazing artists and arts organizations all across the country. And the thing that I also wasn't used to was that I spoke this preserved Ukrainian that my family had brought over. I didn't really understand the Russian that was being spoken at first. And when I did speak, everyone was like, where did this crazy robot lady come from like 1940, you know? Okay, I have some work to do. So I just jumped in, right? And the way I did that was by eating a lot of borscht, right? What else do you do? I started to observe the strange cultural differences, strange to me, normal to Ukrainians, of this tension of these freedoms, these small freedoms, that when you're in Ukraine, you'd be like, this would never happen in the United States. This would be a lawsuit. Like, you can go and go bungee jumping off a crane on the Dnieper River, 90 kilometers down from Chernobyl, after drinking a bunch of beer, and it's totally fine. But there's huge civil liberties that they don't have. Like, I've met so many artists who could not go to specific artist residencies, even across the border in Poland, because you need a visa to leave the country. So I was just experiencing all of these things, and I just asked questions and took lots of photographs. I met amazing people. We drove around the mountainside. People would open up their homes to me, and all that stern, surly ferocity that I encountered on the street just melted away as soon as you showed interest in this desire to understand what was happening. Like speak my language, let's do this together. I went to really volatile sporting events, because that's what you do, I guess. I went to the countryside and experienced these preserved villages where they were still doing the stuff that we learned to do at home. Like we learned how to embroider, and we did Ukrainian dancing in these folk costumes and play regional instruments. Like this still happened in small pockets, but to Ukrainians, this was novelty. It was like going to Genesee Country Village or something, you know? I met women like these amazing babushkas who would bring their wares to the city streets and sell these luscious strawberries and flowers so they could, you know, pay their bills. And they would all line up, and they were really amazing. I saw all the Lenin statues all across the country before they were all toppled during recent revolutions. I went to a Renaissance fair and wore a weird costume because the lady, you could rent costumes, and so my friends and I did it. And this costume was shunned and in the back corner because it was not sexy enough for Ukrainian women to wear. And I said, well, I'm going to wear that because that sheep's head is amazing. And so I put it on and donned it and walked around the Renaissance fair. I was on the news. It was an incredible experience. And throughout this whole process, it was, you know, the first time in my life that I realized that I could forge my own path, that my story was unique. What I needed to do, only I could do, as is all of yours. And how did I set that intention to go and do something that was so important for my career, for my understanding my family's history, that serendipitous moments might not have happened. If I was just running blindly through my life, which I do and most of the time on a day-to-day basis, serendipitous moments don't happen necessarily. Cute, nice things happen, but not those ones that change your life. So it was about setting that intention for myself that made those things all fuse together. So that brings me back to that house. Remember the talk? That house I wanted to go see? Well, I was in Ukraine. Tom, my husband, came to visit, and I was like, we're going to go find that house. And so in Ukraine, there's a lot of corruption. And I was advised not to drive myself, so I had to hire a driver. So I met this nice man at an English language club who drives people around. And the best thing is that he studied his English in London, so he kind of sounded like a jaunty chimney sweep. And so we had an awesome time. So he picked us up, and we drove into the countryside in western Ukraine, to these places that Baba had told me about. And I'll set the scene for you. It was just this beautiful day. It was like 80 degrees, blue skies. It was hot in the sun, but perfect in the shade. Everything was green, the windows were down, and it was just magical. And I was with the love of my life and the chimney sweep, and it was just, you know, couldn't get any better than that. And so the first place we stopped was a bigger town, small city called Berezhany. And this is where Baba had gone to university. And she told us all about the scholars and the writers and all the amazing people that came out of the university there. And it was a beautiful place. We stopped for lunch. We probably had borscht. And then we found a history museum. And the cool, funny thing about small museums in the countryside in Ukraine is that there's usually no one there, but there's someone, you know, who will let you in. You pay your admission, and a very surly woman will turn on the lights for you and tell you not to stray off the path. Because it's, you know, a very post-rigid society, and that's what you had to do. And who knows when all these exhibits had actually been made during a time when there, you know, weren't fancy exhibition designs and they were kind of told what to do. So we meandered through the path very diligently and ended up at this last exhibition that was notable people who had gone to the university in this town who had moved abroad. And I was just looking at all the faces, and then something very familiar popped out at me. And I was like, holy shit, this is my great aunt, Baba's younger sister. Her beautiful face was peering out at me from this black and white photo. She had actually made it to Vienna, unlike, you know, my grandmother and my mom, they all got rerouted. And I visited her there, and I was like, wow, I guess we're in the right place. And then I continued on, and I saw this other guy. And it was this man named Slavko, who basically started all this Ukrainian summer camp south of here. He was like the dude, and he was like, went to camp every summer until he was in his 90s, until he passed away. He's the one that helped build it, totally just run it, and he was like the heart and soul of the summer camp. And he was in this exhibition too, and I was like, this is amazing, right? So I couldn't believe that I actually recognized people in this tiny, tiny museum in the middle of nowhere. And so we're all pumped, and then we made our way to that tiny town, Kututada, to find that house. And we got there, and there was no one on the street. It was basically like a one street town. And we saw someone walking a cow. A guy whizzed past us, two guys, on a motorcycle and in a sidecar that looked like it had been preserved since the 40s. Whizzed past us, and we felt like we were on a movie set. It was really cool. And lo and behold, we found that church. And so I said, okay, this is the right place, we're here. Now, let me think about that painting, can I find this? And so we saw one house, and I'm like, this could be it, and then I saw it, and I knew that it was the house because I had lilac bushes planted all around it, because Baba had told us that she had planted them when she was a teenager. And so we peered in the windows, and we were like, well, we're here. Guys, I made it, I found the freaking house, okay? And I was like, this is so beautiful. Yay, this is great. It was closed up, there didn't seem to be much in there, and so Tom and Yuri, the children's group, and I just were like, this is really cool, all right. I guess let's head back. Oh, there's a house. There it is, we're there. And then I was taking a picture of some corn, which was just a horrible photo, but there's corn everywhere, so I decided to take this photo of these, corn stalks. And this woman you see on the left, she came up to us and she said, oh, hi, you must be the German farming students that I've been expecting. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm here to find this freaking house where my mom was born. And she said, well, what was their last name? So I told her, and she said, well, my mom is still alive. I wonder if she'll know them. And so she said, come on in. And when you're invited into a stranger's house in the village in Ukraine, you just go. You don't even think twice. You drink tea, you drink coffee. They try to have you drink moonshine and cognac, even if you don't want it. They conjure up these amazing confections out of thin air, and you're just there, and time goes away. So we met Maria. Maria at this point was 88 years old. And I told her who I was, and she said, oh yeah, Natalia, Baba's name, Hana, Junko, and started naming all of my Baba's brothers and sisters. I would do plays with them. I sang with them. I was like, okay, we're here. And so she just talked and told us about what they would do together. And while she was talking, I couldn't help but think about the parallels between her life and my Baba's life. And she either didn't want to go, she was a young girl, so she didn't have a choice. She didn't go. She stayed in this house, in this village, all this time when Baba had gone. And Baba was a school teacher and a principal in Ukraine. And when she moved to Rochester, she went to the U of R and got a teaching degree and taught English here. She's a total movie star. And she taught everything, to my mom and my late dad, who also shaped who we are. They're all just such an important and amazing part of our lives. And I just kept thinking about that. And she told us a story about how a soldier had come in, and she remembers as a kid kind of being attacked and thrown in the basement. And she's still in that house. And then, so we're there, and drinking the tea and drinking the coffee, and she goes, oh, hold on a second. And so she shuffles away, and she comes back, and she holds up this photo, and she goes, is that your grandmother? She's right here, the one in the middle. And I was like, oh, she has a freaking photo of Baba in her drawer. How did this happen? And I just looked at Tom, and I looked at the chimney's feet, and we're like, yes, we're in the right place. And the reason I love this story so much is that it's photography as proof. I knew that, she remembered, but she really knew them. She really had memories of them, and I know that Baba's brother had gone to visit, and she somehow got this photo because it was mailed to her. Because obviously Baba is older. It can happen in the past 20 to 30 years. And it just sealed the deal again that photography is proof that as all of my journey around Ukraine and all of the proof that I was creating as I wandered around could possibly be as influential someday as it was for me, but also that by forging my own path, it could lead to other future serendipitous moments. So as you guys came in today, you were asked a question. And this is where I'm going to make you talk, so get ready. And the question is, what big goal haven't you said out loud? And I want everyone to say it out loud, but we're all going to practice first, okay? So on the count of 3, I want everyone to say watermelon as loudly as you can, just so you can get used to it, okay? Is everyone with me? Yeah? Okay. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Watermelon! I didn't even have to do it twice. Okay, so now you're actually going to yell out your goal. If you don't know what that goal is, which I don't believe you, or if you're way too fearful, which doesn't count, still yell watermelon so you don't leave everyone else hanging, okay? Ready? 1, 2, 3. All right? So I believe that by shouting that out and by putting that intention out into the world, amazing serendipitous moments will also cross your path. Thank you.